Hello everyone, and welcome back for a special video I've put together, focusing on the fictional legendary weapons that have been most impactful to me, and the stories and worlds that bear them. I'm a fan of a wide array of different genres and medias, and as such, I have examples from video games, TV shows, and movies here today. However, in interest of not reinventing the wheel, I won't be including overly famous subjects like the lightsaber, master sword, or Mjolnir, etc. I'm also not a full-bore contrarian, however, so there will be some obvious ones, of course, like the Sword of Omens and the Masamune. I've also included lesser renowned armaments like the 3-section staff and Crescent rose to this list. I would like to address that while this is a special focusing on weapons, I have done my best to edit out any overtly graphic violence or biomatter. Just one or two scenes with a little cherry syrup or stylized pixels turning into rose petals. Lastly, just as a quick note, there will be minor spoilers for the stories they come from, so I'll put relevant labels and timestamps below if you need to skip a section. The focus here is on the weapons, so I promise to avoid any unnecessary story specifics. I can't tell you how many times I went to go harvest clips and just ended up playing the video game or watching the entire movie or episode. Without any further ado, though, I'll step out of the way and let these legends shine.
I would very much like to have a weapon such as this.
Yeah, get in line.
Masamune, Final Fantasy VII. We'll start here, with a legend so grand in our own world that the weapon has been recreated in numerous works of fiction. Today, we'll be focusing on its appearance in Final Fantasy VII in particular. Very little is actually known in-world about this massive katana known as the Masamune. But recently, we might have been granted our first insight into its origins. While largely considered more of a Cliff Notes than a direct canon retelling of events, thanks to the story of Ever Crisis, we finally receive a glimpse into the story of how Sephiroth came to wield this legendary blade. As of writing this, however, there are still more chapters to be released, so the final details are still a mystery. Nonetheless, consider this the heaviest spoiler warning for this video. Sephiroth and Angeal are on a recovery mission, searching for a lost team of soldier second class, when they themselves are ambushed by a mysterious and laughing old swordsman. Sephiroth is able to rebuff the surprise attack, but is immediately smitten with the blade the man holds. Speaking as if in a daze, the sword is all Sephiroth focuses on, calling it a masterwork, even in the first moments. However, Sephiroth views the old man as unworthy of the blade, and a battle ensues. Despite seemingly defeating the swordsman, the old man collects himself and overwhelms the two, breaking Sephiroth's issued sword in the process. After this, he reveals that he is Masamune, and is in fact the swordsmith who has created the blade, proclaiming that their heart and soul were poured into this steel. He continues to claim that the sword will bear his name for eternity and will never be replicated. The swordsman leaves, stating that as no one worthy of the blade sought out to claim it, he must now actively seek out one who is worthy. For now, there, the tale ends. As for what we do know, it's more derived from repeat representation and real-world interviews than any kind of explicit confirmation so far. According to a rough translation of the Final Fantasy VII Ultimania Omega, the Masamune is at least longer than Sephiroth is tall, leaving the estimated length between 6 and 8 feet. Many weapons historians agree that such large weapons were more used for area denial situations. However, we typically see Sephiroth taking up stances more aligned with one-on-one engagement. Indeed, unlike the very large handle area for a traditional greatsword, the Masamune seems to have a normal-sized handle, falling between a katana or odachi, averaging roughly 25 to 35 centimeter handles between them, requiring great physical strength to even lift the tip of the blade. A quick brush up on the physics of levers will tell you lifting well over 200 centimeters of forged steel from only at most 40 centimeters of handle is not an easily repeatable task. Not only can Sephiroth reliably lift the weapon, we often see him striking with it single-handedly with great agility. There is even a scene in Advent Children where he wields it in a reverse grip, like the literal boss that he is. Outside of the sheer training and technique needed for such an obtuse weapon, we see several examples in the extended universe of Final Fantasy VII, where the weapon is able to slice clean through metal and stone, never slowing the strike or damaging the blade. While Sephiroth is indeed a skilled swordsman, the Masamune itself is clearly deserving of its mythology. Crescent Rose, RWBY. This high-powered sniper rifle, built into the staff of a collapsible scythe, is a commanding force on the battlefield. A traditional bolt-action design, heavily modified to accept numerous types of enhanced ammunition, RWBY is able to reach out and continue combat from extreme distances. And, when fully deployed, the scythe is capable of clearing off large swaths of any would-be attackers that manage to get close enough. As with all students in combat school, RWBY designed and forged this weapon herself. As a self-described weapon enthusiast, however, Crescent Rose is explained to be inspired from her Uncle Crow's mechanized sword, Harbinger, which was in turn inspired by the dual comma, life and death, wielded by Grim Reaper, Maria Calavera. The world of RWBY is filled with unique weapons, and having such a clear line of inspiration for them makes the lore feel even more vibrant. Crescent Rose sets itself apart from its forebearers, however, as it can be folded in on itself to essentially be worn as a backpack when not in use, unfolded to a shoulder-braced semi-automatic rifle, and out to a full scythe form. RWBY is often seen firing off a round from the sniper in order to use the recoil to strengthen her swings with the scythe. This same technique can also be used to speed or slow her descent when falling, with style. And, in times where the sniper is more beneficial, RWBY is able to plant the blade of the scythe in the ground, allowing for a more stable platform to make rapid precision shots. Three-section staff, the 36th chamber of Shaolin. The iconic martial arts movie that fully embodies the trope of using seemingly unrelated tasks for training purposes brings us the 3-section staff as the culmination of the protagonist's journey. The weapon in our world is largely seen as inefficient, being hard to train with and mostly used as demonstration of a master's prowess, not combat. However, in this story, our hero submits to humility and commits to training, leading to his invention of this weapon as a means of overcoming a hurdle, and ultimately mastering it, along with his past. We follow a student from a small village, a young man named Uday. Along with his friends, Uday gets swept up in the rebellion against the reigning tyranny. Unfortunately, when the magistrate discovers the rebels operating out of the school, no mercy is granted, and the teacher and students are left dead in the streets. The only one to escape, though badly injured, is Uday. Seeking revenge, he travels to the Shaolin temple in order to have them train him. Initially, he sneaks into the temple, but upon being discovered, he finally pleads his case and is allowed to stay. We pick back up after some time, where our hero, now known as this story's version of Sante, is still having trouble fitting in with the monk way of life. Instead of focusing on the task given to him, he is still so focused on the revenge that brought him here that he is looking for the easiest and fastest way to do anything. This earns him the ire of one master monk in particular, who seems to take Sante's rebellious nature as fuel for his own spite. Each chamber of the temple is designed to focus on a particular skill, but just as Sante begins to conquer them, this master will challenge him anew. Even as Sante progresses to the point of being a master himself, this seemingly adversarial teacher prevents him from taking over his own chamber, claiming that Sante must prove his mastery by defeating him in a duel. Time and again, Sante is proven no match for this master and his twin sabers. Sante even tries changing weapons, spending days thinking on nothing other than how to change tactics and gain the upper hand. It's during one of these walks through the bamboo forest, in a moment of inspiration, that Sante strikes out against a stalk of bamboo, causing it to partially break and fall towards him. Again, he strikes the bamboo, causing it to hinge once more. Then, finally, separates it from the stalk completely. Taking his invention back with him, refining it down at the temple, the new version is 3 sections of hardwood, braced with metal caps at the end for striking, as well as attaching chains to the middle section. Renewed with confidence, he challenges the teacher again. The duel is fierce as always, but this time, Sante manages to keep calm and trap one of the swords. The master is clearly impressed and on a back foot, but the master recovers, freeing the sword, and the duel continues. Once again, Sante traps one of the swords, this time managing to disarm the master teacher. Despite losing the blade, the master manages to pivot away and catches the sword before it can hit the ground. Standing upright, the master declares the duel over, and Sante victorious. While Sante will indeed go on to use this weapon in the duel with the final villain, I feel much more of the story for the 3-section staff is here, in the training. It's a fantastic metaphor for our hero's progress, facing great adversity, committing to overcoming it through executed mindfulness, and a display of mastery. Gjallarhorn. Destiny. One of the most powerful and coveted weapons in Destiny's history. There is almost as much story about it in the real world as there is in the game. Originally sold by a hidden merchant during the second week of vanilla Destiny 1, then not again till just shy of 11 months later. The only other way of obtaining it was earning it through a raid, and even then it was by RNGesus's will alone. However, the scarcity didn't stop the deluge of LFG posts all screaming some form of the headline, Gjallarhorn or kick. But we're here for the in-game story. This launcher is capable of firing special tracking munitions that cause an initial explosion, followed by the release of several smaller ordnance that are also able to track hostiles, colliding with their own smaller detonation. However, the significance behind this rocket launcher carries even more weight than just its destructive power. In the early days of the Last City, there were two great landmark battles that established the city as a true stronghold for humanity. Unfortunately, these battles were not without their tragedies. During the Battle of Six Fronts, a branch of humanity's defenders known as Titans established themselves as the living wall that rebuffed the alien invaders, referred to only as Fallen. Sometime later, the Fallen managed to recover and redouble their efforts, drawing in almost all of their available houses in a coordinated attack on the city, known today as the Battle of Twilight Gap. During this battle, many lives were lost, though in the end, the city prevailed. In the aftermath of this sorrowful day, the weapons foundry known as Crux Lomar dedicated the full extent of their resources to produce a truly memorable tribute. The body of the rocket launcher is actually made from the re-smelted armor of the Guardians who were lost during the Battle of Twilight Gap, forged into the stunning visage of winged wolves, resplendent in gleaming ivory and gold. Gifted to the survivors of that terrible battle, the Gjallarhorn is seen as a symbol of honor and survival. Sword of Omens, Thundercats. The story of the Sword of Omens requires a bit of a history lesson. It starts with a different sword, forged by Mum-Ra to hold the War Stone, known as the Eye of Plundera. The villainous tyrant was instructed by ancient spirits to wield the War Stone through a blade forged in the blood of a star. With the ore of the collapsed star, Mum-Ra manipulated a blacksmith to forge the Sword of Plundar. However, this grew dissension in their ranks, and in a plot to overthrow Mum-Ra, the blacksmith was freed of their control and forged a new sword in the same style, leading to the Sword of Omens. This mythic sword of legends has been shown cutting through both stone and steel. It is also capable of emitting a blast of energy of varying strengths, as low as stunning foes, or even blasting apart or wholly vaporizing objects. As the Sword of Plundar held the War Stone, the Eye of Thundera was housed in the hilt of the Sword of Omens. The Eye of Thundera has its own powers, separate from the sword, and is able to have the icon within the stone cast out like a projection, causing an effect much like the bat signal. Even more powerful though, it has also been shown on occasion to empower any Thundercats who make eye contact with the projection, in addition to breaking any mind control or trance they may be under. Covering the eye has been shown to be largely ineffective, capable of shining its energy through and dissolving the obstruction, except in the most extreme of cases. The most grandiose show of power from the Sword of Omens in the Eye of Thundera came at the near destruction of New Thundera, taming the wild expulsions of forces from the core, and bringing the very planet back in line with itself. Staff weapon. Stargate. The iconic weapon of the Gold and the Jaffa. Designed with a weighted bulb on one end that can act as a club, but more than just a stick, the head of the weapon splits open, retracting into 4 sections that allow it to shoot. Activating a switch on the shaft of the weapon, a plume of energy is gathered and shot out much like a traditional projectile. But the staff weapon allows the wielder to adjust the power charge, enabling a slower firing mode that packs more of an explosive power. Or a lower powered yet faster firing mode, allowing for more direct person-to-person engagement. While not exactly known as a weapon of surgical precision, it is instead almost more powerful as a symbol. The mere sight or sound of a staff weapon being activated is enough to strike fear in most. According to the game Stargate Resistance, the actual name for the staff weapon is Matok. But unlike the Zetnik Del, we never hear the name of the staff weapon in the show itself. The clan of free Jaffa warriors known as the Sodan use a shorter variant of the staff weapon, while not explicitly explained, presumably appealing to their fighting style of using stealth tech and staying mobile. The final variant appears in Stargate Origins as the weapon of the bodyguard Serket. This staff weapon has a special blade on the end instead of the traditional weighted club. This is the only time we've seen something like this, so it's probable that it's a custom weapon and not a mass-produced model. Identity Disc. Tron 2.0. In the original feature film, the disc is inherently a tool containing all relevant data for a program. However, through the practice of forcing programs to participate in games as punishment for not falling in line, the disc has been utilized as a weapon, capable of completely de-resing a program utterly. These characteristics of the identity disc are wholly unchanged throughout related media. Here today, we won't be discussing the original movie, the sequel, or even the announced third movie. Instead, I'll be focusing on the video game titled Tron 2.0. This can be a bit confusing, as the general IP was released on different platforms with slightly different content. In modern times, mods have been added to try and blend these on PC to varying degrees. For clarity's sake, I will only be addressing the base game as originally released on PC. This is also the version I grew up with, so I'm biased. In this non-canon sequel, we see the disc's utility and lethality capable of being upgraded to great effect. No longer just a storage device with a cutting edge, this version of the identity disc allows us to reprogram and upgrade our armor, create security tunneling programs granting us access to classified files and storage areas, even allowing us to use and upgrade other digital weapons. While still able to be thrown like a frisbee and ricocheted off walls, upgrades allow us to throw several copies of the disc, or even cause explosions on impact or recoil. These upgrades to our disc and armor follow a update notation similar to program releases, labeled as alpha, beta, or gold, resulting in the character being labeled as 0.0.0, progressing up 0.0.2, and so on. That will be it for this video. These were the iconic weapons that stand out most to me in my mind, whether on their own or due to the gravity of their place in their stories. I wonder, what are some of the more obscure weapons you feel don't get enough highlight in discussions of fiction? Feel free to share them below. I always love learning about more lore. Thanks again for hanging out. Have a good one.
I will